What's going on, everyone? This is Darius here with another episode of the Small Business Diaries, powered by Marketing 360, where I really get the chance to connect with people who are on the front lines in the small business community, in entrepreneurship as a whole, building businesses, solving problems, trying to do business in this 21st century. And we do this in an effort to really give you insight into what the entrepreneurial journey really looks like, because sometimes it gets presented a certain way, but what it really looks like, as well as trying to dig into what are some of the nuts and bolts of how to operate a successful business. So today I have the privilege of being Robert Rubin, founder of Sky Patrol, serial entrepreneur, and as I newly learned, professor of entrepreneurship, which in a day and age where many aren't practitioners, I'm sure he's a gem to his students. Robert, welcome to the Small Business Diaries.
Okay, so I guess I can start at the beginning for me, and that is my father was an entrepreneur, and he really smart guy. He ended up joining his family business, which was a 4-generation business. And so when my friends were out playing baseball on the weekends, I had a really special relationship with my dad. So I would go in on Saturdays, and during holidays, I would work for him. During the summers, I'd work for him. So that's how I started, sort of got my entrepreneurship inclination or desire. But I ended up I was a accounting major in college, not because I knew anything about accounting, but it just was, it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And I became a CPA, and I hated it. So I went to law school, not really knowing what else to do. And then I became a merger and acquisition lawyer and securities lawyer. And I did that for almost 6 years. But I always felt like, I wanted to be involved in business itself, running or growing my own businesses. So I had the opportunity with one of my clients to leave the practice and join him, not as a lawyer, but as a businessman. And he was extremely entrepreneurial. So I did that for a while. I also joined a large, actually today, the largest home builder in the United States. And I was a president of a division there, but it was a very entrepreneurial experience because it was a home building company, and I brought technology division there. So it was extremely entrepreneurial. And I enjoyed that. I had some good success there. And then, so the last, how many years, probably almost 18 years, I've been an entrepreneur more on my own and with a partner, creating a variety of businesses. And Sky Patrol was one of those businesses. We, like many entrepreneurs, that we started out doing something a little different, and we pivoted because we saw some opportunities. We actually started out as a hardware manufacturer, designing product here in the United States and producing product in China. And eventually, after about 6 years or so, we morphed to a service provider, kind of a SaaS service provider, where we bundled the hardware and we bundled software. So now we got into the software business. So that's, I got into that business. I actually tried to sell it, but it was sort of like a boomerang. The buyer didn't really work out. So I'm sort of back into Sky Patrol again and trying to grow it again. And so that's what I'm doing with Sky Patrol. But I've had businesses in a variety of areas, software, including from software. I actually had a refurbishing company with manufacturing in Mexico. I've had transportation, logistics businesses. I now have several businesses. I'm in the outdoor media business. Billboards, which is kind of challenging and enjoyable. But certainly challenging. And I also have an investment banking firm where I represent other companies, not my own companies, other companies, to either raise capital or sell their businesses, which I enjoy because that's sort of uses both my experience as a lawyer and my experience as an entrepreneur. So I have that somewhat unique experience to help people that are trying to grow their business and scale their business. So that
So wait a second. So you're running at least three businesses from what I gather.
today, at least three. Yeah.
At least three.
Yeah.
Professor as well of
Professor.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Husband, I take it.
Husband and father.
Father.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I actually want to go back to Sky Patrol, but I just want to ask like how, I'm sure you get systems and things in place, but how difficult is that? Like that's pulling
Yeah.
five different directions at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's more because I actually divide my life into money-making activities and not money-making activities. So
Why do you do that?
Because I feel like, I've been successful and feel like a responsibility to give back. So I actually give my salary back to school. So I don't take a salary for the teaching. I also belong to an organization called VMT. VMT stands for Venture Mentoring Team. And so we, you can Google it, but it is a volunteer organization where we give advice to, early stage startup companies. And it's purely altruistic. You're not allowed to have any economic, extract any economic benefit from that relationship at all. That would be grounds for termination of the charity. So from the charity. So anyway, so I spend time doing that stuff, and I spend time doing my three companies. Probably the secret is I have a partner in every one of the companies I operate for the most part. So I rely on them to a large extent, although I am, knee deep on a daily basis.
So now, yeah, I mean, you were able to label yourself as a successful entrepreneur. What makes a successful entrepreneur?
For me, it's, I enjoy winning. It's not about the money for me. It's about winning and creating, success.
So the game of business.
It's a game for me. It is a game for me. And by the way, I take as much pride as helping, someone else, because I do mentor people that have really great businesses, and I do that, for no compensation. But when they win, I feel like I'm a winner as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
When you reference it as a game, so when I think of a game, I think of sports, right? You think of basketball, football. I was a boxer. I think of things like that. And then when you think of game, you have rules, you have, strategy, tactics, different things. For the audience out there, some might be starting a business brand new. Some might be thinking about it. And maybe some might be, obviously in the trenches already.
Right.
But the reality is that it is a game. It's a, business is a game, life is a game, marriage, all these things are game-ish. You can't really label them games in the sense of the value of people and different things, but the way they play out are very similar to games. There's controls, there's variables. And so from your perspective, could you break down how you see business as a game? Maybe I've never asked anyone this before, so I don't know how it would go, but if I'm your son or I'm one of your mentees, and I'm like, I want to be in business. And you're like, well, you need to understand it's a game. How would you begin to break that down for me to maybe begin to look at it high level?
Right. So, like any game, you don't win them all, right? So, LeBron doesn't win every game he plays. So, you have to understand, but if you have a setback, you either pivot like I did in Sky Patrol, or in other businesses where I've had to change course or change strategy or even just work harder. So, and there's a lot of analogies to sports. If you lose, you may not be spending enough time in the batting cage or, in practice or whatever, and you may need to spend some more time, working at your craft. So, business is not that much different. So a lot of times though, in business, you don't necessarily see some of the forces that are working against you, and they may not be as obvious. And that comes back to our conversation about mentors and leveraging mentors. So bringing somebody's fresh ideas to help you kind of navigate, the difficulties. Because in every business, you're going to have difficulties and obstacles that you're going to have to overcome.
So now when you're looking at that, maybe I need to be in the batting cage. So, or I got to work on the mechanics of my swing or something, right? Metaphorically speaking, when you're talking to, obviously every mentee that you approach, that's different situation based on the status of their business, industry, those kind of things. But what are maybe 5 things you would say, and if it's not 5, it can be less as well, but here are some essential things every business owner needs to make sure they have a grip on and are always maybe improving or, just going through the motions with, but these aspects of business. So is it, knowing that obviously it's knowing the numbers, but maybe it's systems, maybe it's compensation structure, but what are those maybe 5 things that you're like, these really put you on a path to at least having something that's tangible that you can begin to build off?
Right. Well, I would say number one is having a plan, both a narrative that you're trying to pursue, but also financial plan as well. And so you need to really understand the numbers of your business. You need to understand your key indicators, key performance indicators, and be able to measure those on a regular basis. You need to put people around you. That's probably the second one is have people around you that are that are passionate about what you're doing, and maybe even has skin in the game. Either ownership or possible ownership, but also that maybe have skill sets that complement your skill set. So I give the students a description of software development companies that fail, but usually 3 or 4 software guys will get together and they create a product, but the business fails. And I ask the students, why does it fail? Well, the reason it fails is you don't have a financial person, you don't have a leader, you don't have a person that has the other skill set other than developers. And so they create a great product, but there's nobody to sell it. There's nobody to have financial controls and things like that. So you need to have a balanced business team. So people are extremely important in your business. I guess I never really thought about it this way, but you also need to learn how to give back, giving back for me is really important. But I think to some degree, that without being spiritual, I think, I get things because I give things too. So I think there's some, give and get, opportunity there. So those are essentially the 3 that I think of. I'm sure there's several more or nuances of those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I want to go into Sky Patrol just because just picking one of the businesses, you're close to 20 years in having this business. Along the way, you've made pivots, you've done certain things, but what was it when you were stepping into it? What led you and your partner at the time to say, this is the business model we want to pursue? Like, what was there a process that you looked at? Was it the industry and you saw an opportunity, or was it just something that maybe you're scratching your own itch, or you just heard about it and were like, let's check this out? What made you choose that as a business model?
Yeah, so I joined the company like 1 year in.
Okay.
And so they had already made the commitment to go down the path of the manufacturing. And we did fine doing that. But I pivoted to get away from manufacturing after I learned the business, and we ended up partnering with a manufacturer.
Did you see it wasn't like you weren't making money or long term?
I felt like there was too much. I felt like we could be more efficient and more profitable by outsourcing the manufacturing. And then I thought we could be more profitable by creating a recurring revenue stream and create more value at the company level. So those were kind of the evolutions I took along the way. And sometimes, you make decisions that in hindsight make you look really smart or make you really dumb. So you don't necessarily think of them at the time as a good or smart decision. They may be just more, logical or defensive in some cases, not necessarily offensive. So
Yeah. Over, close to being 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur, what have you, so you had the job as the accountant and you were like, this said something about this is rubbing me in the wrong way. But then you step into entrepreneurship, which for obviously, if you've been doing it for 20 years, you're like, this is home for me. This is where I need to be. But some of the, what were some of the things you had to maybe look in the mirror and say, I really need to be better at this, or I really need to learn this, or I need to develop this skill? Not just necessarily because I'm here now, I'm going to be successful, because it's a lot of hard work. So what were some of those things that you maybe didn't know you had to improve?
So I read a fair amount. So I read business books. I read, I read fiction and nonfiction, but the nonfiction is really geared a lot towards business. So, I think that has helped me a lot. Think about, bigger issues that maybe I take for granted. So I'm able to focus on issues that when you read about somebody else discussing certain important issues that they dealt with, you kind of either say I've experienced that, or I haven't experienced it, I should experience it. So I think I've been able to expand my effectiveness by reading, actually.
I dig it. Now, I would argue, now I'm not an entrepreneur, but I would argue, just from being someone who takes their profession really seriously, that when we use the term work-life balance, which one can argue it, there really necessarily isn't a balance. You're just moving to and fro. But how running 3 businesses, running multiple businesses over the time, going through different phases of growth and loss, how have you been able to prioritize family, and particularly your marriage, over these last 20 years?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. If you ask me, I get probably a B minus, and maybe if you ask my wife, I get a D or an F. I don't know, but I am good about going on trips. And we go on trips. We enjoy traveling. We enjoy traveling globally, and and my wife enjoys that, and so. Hold on, let me write this down. Here you go. Oh, you got it? Okay. We're sort of run a summer camp here, so we have a few kids here, so they need to borrow my phone.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I try to do what I have to do to do that. It's
Yeah.
But I like this Thursday, I have where I'm supposedly on vacation. We're heading out to a wedding in South Carolina, but at 2:00 I have a court hearing in a matter. So I got to explain to my wife, which I haven't had the guts to do yet, that I need to stop and for 15 minutes and log on. So, but anyway, those it always happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, she probably knew that when she married you, right? Like, or
Yeah.
at least throughout the process was like coming to terms with that. how would you give any advice maybe on communication with your spouse? Because I mean, when things are tense at home, that's got to make business 5 times harder, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, you did a B minus. You're probably a D, like you said, which I agree. Because knowing me, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm actually, side note, I remember on one podcast, I made a statement like, oh, I'm killing it. I am killing it. And I remember, I thought about it later. I was like, how arrogant of me, first of all. Second of all, my wife probably would say, you're doing okay, you know? And so, but for us, a lot of it comes down to communication. And
Right.
so throughout, these years of being together with your wife and doing all of this, how do you, without trying to be too personal, I just, I think our generation, my generation, and the ones that come really struggle with communication in relationships, especially those types of relationships where there's a lot hanging in the balance. And so, would you have any advice on communication as an entrepreneur, as a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other who uh, is trying to carve out a path of success within one frame, but you have to nurture these relationships. But so, would you have any advice on how to communicate with your spouse?
Yeah. So, I think different spouses have different,
Right, for
uh,
sure.
perceptions. So, I don't, my spouse probably isn't as interested in hearing about all my nuances during the day and stuff like that. But it is important for me to listen to her. So, even if I had a bad day, I listen to what's was bad in her day, and so I need to make time to be a good listener. So I think that's really important, and I think some spouses enjoy hearing about what's going on in the kind of crazy entrepreneurship world that I live in, or that we live in. So I think it depends upon the relationship, but it's certainly, you got to be sensitive to it, and uh, you know just knowing that either you got to be sharing, as you said. The communication is really important, and the question is, which way is it flowing? So, and how do you satisfy your spouse? And you need to be sensitive to that she wants somebody to if your wife has 3 young kids at home, she wants to tell you about all the stuff goes on today, and you want to tell her about all the good stuff that you have going on. The priority is the listening, and if she really is open to hearing about what you're doing, then yes. But I always found that having an open mind and listening is better than speaking.
Absolutely. Well, these last few minutes that I have you, I want to dive a little bit in just to uh, not necessarily numbers, but just focus specifically on business. So when you're, Sky Patrol is, guys. So Sky Patrol, if a business has anything that's an asset that's mobile, leaves the facility, Sky Patrol tracks it. They also have the software and the hardware to do that, and then other nuances that they're a technology-based company, correct?
Yes.
You have the hardware infrastructure as well. Being a technology-based company, a SaaS, in this technology space is always moving fast. Things are changing,
Yeah.
and then you tackle on some of the things of the last year. Uh, how I think the question really is just like, how do you keep up as a technology-based company in 2021 when it's moving fast, and you and others spearheading this? How do you focus on positioning the company to continue to play this technology game, because without being, outdated really
Yeah.
fast, or using
Yeah.
something that's not effective?
Yeah. It's a challenge. It depends what side of the technology you're on. Our business has not evolved that much. I can tell you that 10 years ago, I told people that we had a good 5-year run. And then, I didn't, I kind of expected the technology would catch up and we would become an obsolete company, but we're relevant today. 10 years later. So
Is that because of a niche, just the niche that you're in?
I think it's somewhat of a niche business. We provide solutions, and they're as long as they have cars and trucks, and they put technology in cars that we could use. In other words, we could use the mobile device in the car and not put our own mobile device in the car. So I thought that's where the business was going to go, and we would have our software that could maybe interact. But the truth is, none of the car companies want to give third parties access to that hardware in the car. So we still need to put a hardware device in the car. So there could be 2 cellular modules in a vehicle or more. But each of if you have a Ford car, Ford owns one. And if you have a Sky Patrol device, Sky Patrol owns the other. And maybe you have a third one from somebody else. So it seems logical that eventually that the hardware will become one, and people should be able to share access there. It would actually lower my cost of goods sold. It would, my entry into the business, because people would only be using my software. But I don't see it on the horizon, even though it seems very logical.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, 2021, say we stripped away everything from you. Took Sky Patrol, we took the investment banking, we took all these things, and we were like, start all over. Where areas of business do you think, in terms maybe of industry or niche, would Robert be like, I think there's some opportunity in that space?
So I just closed a investment banking opportunity in a heart catheter, new patented technology that advances that. And I really believe that healthcare services for the next 10 years plus, maybe 20 years, is going to be the industry to be in. So, and
you see a distant second, anything second place that you'd maybe say?
I think education. I have an education idea that I want to get off the ground. I think education, because of COVID, people are comfortable now learning online. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity to receive education through an online source, either asynchronous or synchronously, which I believe in synchronous education, which is really more live and interactive. But I think that will become a big business as well.
Love it. Well, you are, and I'll begin to wrap it up here. You are a professor of entrepreneurship who's actively practicing, operational leadership. So I would say my question to you is, what do you think that so many people, and maybe you don't even think so many people, so what do you think people are getting wrong about entrepreneurship right now?
There really is no education for entrepreneurs. A lot of people want to start a business, but they go to a 4-year college and they learn things that have nothing to do with start a business. They take calculus, which is a waste of time. They take humanities, which is a waste of time. I think people really need to learn how to start a business. And I think colleges, this is philosophical, but colleges are really geared for a different purpose. They stretch it out for 4 years because they want your money for 4 years, not because you need 4 years of education. So I think for entrepreneurs, they need to come, if you have a good idea, your idea is relevant now, you need to start that business now, not in 4 years. So I think if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you should go and get an intensive training on how to start a business, how to create an idea, how to prove the idea really has some legs, how to do a minimal viable product or service, how to launch the business, how to hire people, how to protect your IP. All those issues need to be understood. And I think if you do
How do they
that,
do that? Do you have any ideas of how someone would do that? So is it working
that's my
in a
next,
business?
that's my next business.
Okay.
It's to launch an education platform and do that and have some experiential learning, maybe so the students actually work on a real project, a real business. So they see how it works. And so when they graduate after only maybe 8 months, they may get a certificate, but the truth is not graded, but they actually have the experience to start a business from the beginning, thinking of an idea, to actually, opening up your bank account and selling your product.
So while we wait for this business, which guys, everyone enroll, right? If you're interested, what is something that they can do? I mean, like, for example, we have all these high school and college students that have just graduated. Many of them want to get in business, right? Entrepreneurship is sexy right now, right? So many of them have dreams of being an entrepreneur. Whether or not it's for them, they don't know yet.
Yeah.
But you haven't built that platform just yet, so they can't come to you. Any guidance that you would give to them in that area of like how do we get some experience? Do we pool our money together as friends and start a business? Do we just say skip college for a year and I'm going to go find the industry that I really want to see if I want to be a part of this and find a job there? Or
so college is not for everybody for some of the reasons why I mentioned. If you have an idea and you want to be an entrepreneur, graduating high school is just as good a time as 4 years out or 8 years out or 20 years out. So I think those are the audiences I'm going to appeal to. I'm going to appeal to high school graduates. I'm going to appeal to people that went to college and didn't learn how to start a business. I'm going to appeal to people who can't afford to go to college but want to start a business. And I'm going to appeal to people that are in a corporate world but really want to get out of that corporate world but don't know how to start a business. So I'm going to appeal to all those different constituents, and they're all viable for starting a business. So I think you need to have a foundation of how to start a business, and maybe you start working for somebody else before you start your own business. That certainly, it's sort of an apprenticeship role, but you're really an employee, you're really drawing a salary. But you're getting an experience from somebody else with somebody else's money. And so that when you are ready, or you think you're ready, to put all that together and take that risk, both economic risk and just risk, then you'll do it on your own.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here with 2 more. What are some books? You're a reader, so reading is a valuable thing in all the options we have today to consume books, from audio to whatever it is. What are some books that you would say you would be recommending to some of these people who are thinking about it, wanting to get started, maybe newly into business? What are some books that would be of service to them?
Wow, that's so many.
Top of mind, rather.
Yeah. So if I just gave my son a book on Sunday, and he wants to get into the real estate business, and he wants my guidance, and I said, listen, there's a book that has a certain section talking about real estate. It's called How to Become a Millionaire. But it's not, it's economic millionaire, but it's also, just success, both, all kind of success. So, and there is a section in there. I thought that would be really helpful for him. So that's on top of my mind. There's also a great book if you're raising capital from a venture firm. It's called Venture Deals. I actually use that in my class to teach, what it's like to raise venture capital. So I highly recommend that book as well. Can't think of any really titles right now, but there's so many, really good books about, I read about business, I read about negotiating, I read about, a variety of things that can impact and help me succeed in business.
So maybe we can't name books, but we can name certain aspects of business. So we have just operational, we have negotiation, obviously financial understanding, guys. Any other areas that you're like, you know, you really should probably dive into this area?
Human resources,
Human resources.
yeah, yeah. How to protect your IP. You know, a lot of people don't, they don't really realize that they have IP in their business, whether it's actually a patent or trademark, or which is, protected by the federal government, or whether they have, intellectual property in their business, like customer lists or secret formulas or something like that, that that they need to protect. So how do you really protect that? How do you motivate employees? How do you hire employees? That's really, really important.
All right. Last but not least, the Small Business Diary audience. Rob, this goes out to social media and people who they follow our channel, and they're interested in business. Would you leave them with a parting word? Obviously, you're ignorant of where they're at in their journey, but in the matter of business, leave our potential audience here with just a parting word.
If you want to be successful in business, you have to have resilience. You're going to get knocked off your chair, and you just got to get back up, and you got to be creative and want to succeed. You got to believe in yourself, and even though you may be discouraged or had a really bad day or a really bad year, you still got to believe in yourself, and you got to move forward. And sometimes businesses fail, and most of the time businesses fail, but that doesn't mean you're a failure. It means that the idea maybe wasn't good, and there's probably a lot of lessons to be learned from that. And the second time around, you take that same energy and passion, and which is the resilience I'm talking about, and go out and do it a second time, or again.
True words spoken right there. Well, Robert, thank you for being with us on the Small Business Diaries. You've brought a lot of great insight from actual lived experience in this space that many people want to get into. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, running summer camps and businesses and everything else that you're doing. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Okay, Darius, nice to meet you.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, thank you for listening. Darius here with the Small Business Diaries, powered by Marketing 360, Robert Rubin of Sky Patrol.